All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today's deep dive takes us back to the book of Genesis, specifically chapter 46, which chronicles Jacob's dramatic journey to Egypt.
Oh yeah, this is one of those stories that just sets the stage for so much that follows in the history of the Israelites.
It really does. We're talking family reunions, divine visions, and a whole cultural shift for Jacob and his entire crew.
Absolutely, it's a huge turning point.
Okay, so to set the scene, Jacob is at Beersheba, a place loaded with ancestral history, right? And he's about to pack up and move his entire family down to Egypt.
Yep, after years of being apart from his son Joseph.
Exactly. And of course, Joseph, the one who was, sold into slavery, but then rose to power in Pharaoh's court.
Right, quite a story.
Talk about a family reunion you wouldn't want to miss. But before they even hit the road, things get, a bit supernatural.
Oh, for sure. Jacob has this intense vision where God appears to him.
God's like, don't sweat it, Jacob. Head to Egypt. I gotcha.
And not only that, God reaffirms the promise made to Abraham that Jacob's descendants would become a great nation.
Man, that promise thing really strikes a chord with me. It's like this thread connecting all their individual stories to some much bigger plan.
It's foundational to their entire narrative, yeah.
It's so much more than just a family road trip, that's for sure.
Exactly. And right smack in the middle of all this, the text drops this super detailed genealogy of Jacob's family. I mean, it's a list of all his sons and their kids, 70 people in all. It's almost like a census record embedded right in the story.
I have to admit, sometimes I just kind of skim over those lists of names, but I'm actually curious now, what's the significance of including a genealogy here? It's got to be more than just keeping track of who's who, right?
Oh, way more than that. Remember, we're talking about ancient Israelite society here. Lineage was everything. It determined your place in the community, your inheritance, your whole social standing.
Wow. So these lists weren't just names on a page, they were about power dynamics within the family. I can only imagine the rivalries.
Oh, I'm sure there were some. And the number 70 itself, that probably had some symbolic weight too.
Like what?
Well, in biblical numerology, 70 often represents completeness or totality, the idea of fullness. So maybe it's emphasizing that Jacob is bringing his entire world with him to Egypt.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're about to enter this completely new world, right? And just before they cross the border, Joseph gives them this, somewhat strange advice. He tells them to tell Pharaoh that they're shepherds.
And this is where things get a little puzzling.
Right, because the text itself tells us that shepherds were detestable to the Egyptians. Like, what was Joseph thinking?
It's a real head-scratcher, and scholars have been debating this for centuries. But let's try to see it from the Egyptian perspective. Their entire civilization revolved around agriculture, with the Nile River as their lifeline.
Right, the Nile was everything.
And shepherds, well, they were often nomadic, moving their flocks wherever they could find pasture. You can imagine how the Egyptians, with their carefully cultivated fields and highly structured society, might have viewed these wanderers.
So, maybe not the warmest welcome for shepherds, but Joseph, being the clever guy he was, surely had a plan up his sleeve.
Most likely. By presenting themselves as shepherds, the Israelites could carve out a niche for themselves within Egyptian society. Think about it. Shepherds need grazing land, and the Egyptians might have been more than happy to give them land away from their precious farmland.
So it's a way for them to secure their livelihood while also maintaining some separation.
Exactly. It's a strategic occupation of sorts.
Very clever, Joseph. But we can't forget about this underlying tension, this idea of the detestable shepherd. I have a feeling that's going to come back to bite them later on.
It definitely plays a role in their evolving relationship with the Egyptians. But before we get to all that, we got to talk about the emotional reunion between Jacob and Joseph.
Oh, this is where the story gets really powerful. After years of believing his son was dead, Jacob finally gets to see Joseph, embrace him. It's an incredibly moved scene. You can almost feel the relief, the joy pouring out of the text.
It's a reminder that beyond all the historical and theological layers, this is a story about family, about loss and reconciliation. And that human element is what makes it resonate so deeply, even after all these centuries.
It does. And it also hints at those complex family dynamics, especially given how Joseph's brothers treated him in the past.
Oh yeah, that tension is simmering beneath the surface.
So we've got divine promises, a meticulously planned migration, and a deeply emotional family reunion. It's just the start of their adventure in Egypt, and I have a feeling things are about to get a whole lot more complicated.
Definitely a lot more to unpack.
Okay, so we left off with Jacob and his fam arriving in Egypt, all set to kick off this new chapter in their lives. But something tells me their transition wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
You're spot on. Imagine uprooting your entire extended family and plopping them down in a completely foreign country. The culture shock alone must have been intense.
I can't even imagine.
These were pastoral people,
Yeah.
used to living a nomadic life, tending their flocks, and suddenly, bam, they're in Egypt, this super developed agricultural society with its own complex hierarchy and totally different way of life.
Talk about a fish out of water experience. How did they even begin to navigate this new world? They were essentially outsiders in this massive, powerful empire.
Well, keep in mind, Joseph's got this prominent position in the Egyptian government. He's been paving the way for their arrival, and remember, he strategically advised them to present themselves as shepherds. It was a calculated move to help them find their place without losing their autonomy.
Right, that clever strategy we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And it seems like it worked because they end up settling in a region called Goshen. So what was Goshen like? Was it a bustling city or something else entirely?
Goshen was in the Nile Delta. Prime real estate for their needs. Think lush pastures as far as the eye can see, perfect for grazing their livestock. And it was far enough from those major Egyptian cities, which probably helped minimize potential conflicts.
So they found their little corner of the world where they could live their way of life, coexist peacefully with the Egyptians. But I'm curious about their day-to-day interactions with the Egyptians. Was it all smooth sailing from there?
The text doesn't really delve into the specifics of their daily interactions, unfortunately. But the fact that shepherds were considered detestable by at least some Egyptians hints that there was definitely some social distance, maybe even prejudice.
It makes sense, though. Different lifestyles, different cultural values, it can definitely lead to misunderstandings, even today. It's like showing up to a party in jeans when everyone else is dressed to the nines. But didn't the Israelites eventually prosper in Egypt? I mean, we often hear about their time there as a period of growth and abundance.
Oh, absolutely. They did multiply and thrive, fulfilling that divine promise to their ancestors. This period of growth was crucial. It allowed them to expand their numbers and really establish themselves as a distinct community. But it's important to remember this prosperity had an expiration date.
Right, because eventually they end up as slaves to the Egyptians, which of course sets the stage for the Exodus led by Moses.
Precisely.
So their time in Egypt, it was kind of a mixed bag, a time of blessings, but also hardship.
Yeah, it's a complicated story. It highlights the challenges of migration, cultural adaptation, and holding on to faith in the face of adversity. And it all traces back to Jacob's journey, to that decision to leave his homeland and venture into the unknown. He had no clue what lay ahead for his family, the highs and the lows, the ultimate shaping of a nation. It's a story that still resonates so strongly even centuries later.
We tend to think of them as this unified group, but was it really that simple? What was happening within the Israelite community itself?
That's a great question. It's easy to view them as this monolithic entity, but remember, they were a family, a big, complicated family with its own set of internal tensions and power struggles. And those dynamics would have a huge impact down the line.
Okay, spill the tea. What kind of power struggles are we talking about?
Well, think back to that detailed genealogy we discussed. It's not just a random list of names. It establishes a hierarchy within the family. Reuben, as Jacob's firstborn son, theoretically held the most prominent position.
Ah, so birth order was a big deal back then. Makes sense, but I'm guessing it wasn't always that straightforward.
You got it. Seniority didn't always equal leadership. The text actually hints at rivalries and jealousies among the brothers, especially directed at Joseph, who was clearly Jacob's favorite.
Oh, the classic tale of sibling rivalry, as old as time itself.
Exactly. And those tensions had very real consequences. Remember the story of Joseph being sold into slavery by his own brothers. Talk about envy and resentment leading to some pretty devastating actions. And it foreshadows the conflicts that would continue to plague the Israelites throughout their time in Egypt.
Wow, some serious family drama there. It makes you wonder how they managed to stick together as a community with all that brewing beneath the surface.
It speaks to their shared history, their faith, and maybe a little bit of necessity, being in a foreign land and all. But those internal dynamics add a whole other layer to their story. It's not just about their relationship with the Egyptians, it's about their relationship with each other.
Okay, so we've got cultural clashes, power struggles, and a whole lot of family drama unfolding. I'm completely hooked. Where do we go from here?
Well, now that we've laid the groundwork for their experience in Egypt, we need to explore how these internal and external pressures shape their destiny and ultimately lead to their exodus from Egypt.
Can't wait to delve into that. So we've been digging deep into Jacob's journey to Egypt, this epic story of family, faith, and cultural adaptation. We've talked about the divine promises, the strategic move to Egypt, those tense interactions with the Egyptians, and even the drama within the family itself. Help me connect the dots here. What's the big picture? What does it all mean, in the grand scheme of things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? When we step back and look at this story from a historical perspective, Jacob's journey is way more than just about one man and his family. It marks the beginning of a whole new era for the Israelites. Their time in Egypt, it becomes this defining period, like a crucible, where their faith is tested, their culture is preserved, and their collective identity is forged.
It's wild how they transform from this big, extended family into a whole people, a nation with a shared past and a common destiny.
Exactly. And that future, as we know, involves a period of slavery and then that incredible exodus led by Moses. But without this time in Egypt, without those trials and triumphs, the Israelite story just wouldn't be the same. It's like a seed being planted in foreign soil.
So even though they faced all these challenges, even though they were viewed with suspicion by the Egyptians, this period was crucial to their development as a people. It's almost like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Sometimes those difficult, maybe even seemingly negative experiences actually play a huge role in shaping who we are. We see it again and again throughout history and even in our own lives.
Which brings up a question I've been thinking about. I mean, this is an ancient story, right? But does it still have any relevance for us today? What can we in the 21st century learn from Jacob's journey?
Well, that's the beauty of these timeless stories. They speak to these universal human experiences that go beyond time and place. Think about all the themes we've been discussing: migration, cultural adaptation, family relationships, faith in the midst of uncertainty, the complexities of leadership. These are challenges that people grapple with in every generation.
Yeah, we all have to navigate new environments, deal with our family history, and wrestle with questions of identity and belonging. And Jacob's story, with all its ups and downs, gives us a framework for understanding those complexities.
Exactly. It reminds us that our journeys, even the hard ones, can have meaning. And it shows us that even when we're facing adversity, there's always hope for transformation. And even when things get messy, the bonds of family and faith can help us get through.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to throw out one last thought-provoking question here. We've been looking at this whole story mainly from the perspective of Jacob and his family, the newcomers. But what if we switch gears for a minute? What if we try to see it from the Egyptian point of view?
That's a really interesting angle. We focused on the migrant experience, but imagine being on the other side of that encounter. How did the Egyptians view this influx of foreigners coming to settle in their land? I'm sure it wasn't just one simple reaction.
It had to be mixed, right? Some probably welcomed them, others maybe were suspicious, and some might have felt threatened. It's human nature, I guess, to be a little wary of the unknown.
Absolutely. And remember, the Israelites were shepherds, a group that some Egyptians considered detestable. That cultural clash adds another layer of complexity. We can imagine there were economic tensions too, maybe competition for resources. It's a good reminder that even in seemingly clear-cut historical events, there are always multiple perspectives at play.
It makes you realize that every story has multiple sides. And by exploring those different viewpoints, we can get a much deeper understanding of the past and just how complex human interactions really are. Jacob's journey to Egypt is a story that's given us a lot to think about. It's about family, faith, cultural clashes, and the challenges of starting over in a new place. And it's a story that still speaks to us thousands of years later, reminding us that the human experience, with all its messiness and beauty, is this timeless tapestry woven from threads of hope, resilience, and that never-ending search for belonging.
Well said. It's a story that encourages us to reflect on our own journeys, our own encounters with the unfamiliar, and how our past shapes our present and future.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Jacob's journey to Egypt. I hope you've all enjoyed exploring this fascinating piece of history with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep digging for those hidden gems of knowledge.
Until next time, happy exploring.